Movie buffs, welcome back to the Movie Bay. This is D. In today's video, we're going to do 50 great movies from the year 2000 to 2010. So far, we did 90s movies. We did the Community Challenge, the top 25. I'm going to redo that and do 50. We did 80s movies. I think I did 50 movies from the 80s. I think we did 50 movies from the 70s. And I think we did 40 movies. It might have been 40. Either way, we did a 90s list, a 70s list, an 80s list, and a 60s list. Today, we're going to do 2000 to 2010. So without further ado, let's dive in and take a look at 50 great movies from the year 2000 to 2010. Starting the list off with 2005's Mr. and Mrs. Smith. By the way, this isn't ranked or anything. This is just random movies that I selected from the year 2000 to 2010. So, 2005, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, starring Angelina Jolie and Brad Pitt. I do believe they was married when this movie was made, or dating. But either way, this movie is fantastic. So you got husband and wife. They're operatives on and they work with different agencies. And eventually, they get contracted to go at each other. If you like fun action movies, this is a must-watch. This is an action movie, a lot of gunplay, tons of gunplay, almost unrealistic gunplay, but that's what makes it so much fun. This is a fun action movie. So if you're a fan of fun action movies, you'll love Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Fantastic movie. I really enjoyed Mr. and Mrs. Smith. It's a really fun action movie. Next up, we got 2001's 13 Ghosts. This movie is chilling. It's scary. It's a really scary movie. But the thing about this movie that's really scary and creepy to me is the bonus features where they give you like a background on each one of the ghosts. That is so damn scary. If you watch this movie by yourself at night, you will definitely feel a little hairs rising up. This is a really good, scary movie. It is. And I really feel like 13 Ghosts don't get enough praise when we talk about horror movies. Next up is 2001's, this is 2000. The year 2000, this is Traffic. This movie is a banger. I did this on Underrated Movies. I really think this movie deserved more shine. This movie won a lot of awards. It basically shows the war on drugs from 3 different perspectives. And each perspective, they all kind of come together. What a fantastic movie. Because, you know, guys, the war on drugs, I think the war on drugs was a pointless war. I think things could have been done a little bit differently. I think they was a little heavy-handed in areas where they didn't really have to be. And I think more could have been done to prevent that war on drugs than actually fight a never-ending war, because they still fighting the war on drugs and they're losing. And it's just been a non-stop mess. But anyway, Traffic. Do I agree with drugs being sold legally or illegally? No. But I think a war on something that lasts for decades is pointless, in my opinion. It's a waste of resources, a waste of time. And things could have just been done differently. That's all I'm saying. Next up, we got 2005's The Exorcism of Emily Rose. This is another banging horror movie. And again, it gets some love, but this is definitely up there with the best exorcism movies. Of course, The Exorcist is the crown jewel in The Exorcist 3. But this is probably right there with The Exorcist 3, in my opinion. This is right up there, one of the best exorcism movies ever. Fantastic movie, The Exorcism of Emily Rose. Next up, we have 2009. Okay, so 2009's Precious. Precious, this movie right here. I put this in a video, movies that'll make you cry. This movie right here will bring tears to your eyes. The way this girl was treated by her family, whew, man, she didn't catch no breaks. Her life was just ridiculously hard. Precious, this movie is crazy. Next up, we got 2007's Transformers, the very first live-action Transformer movie. We call this Bayformers. How I feel about the series is, I think it was good for the time. They actually rebooting the series, and the newer ones look better. The character models look a lot more accurate to the cartoons, to the G1 first generation Transformers. But I think these was pretty good. They're not my best. I won't probably bring these up in any of the best movies of any year or decade, but they good enough. Next up is a banging comedy from 2006. We have Tenacious D in the Pick of Destiny. Yo, this movie is so good. Like, the rock off they have with the devil at the end. Then they have another scene where they actually in a bar on the stage. And man, look, Tenacious D in the Pick of Destiny. This is a stoner movie for sure. One of the better stoner movies out there. Jack Black did an amazing job in this. Tenacious D in the Pick of Destiny. Pick this one up. Check this one out. Next up, we have a movie that I put on an underrated movies list. And this movie is probably one of the more, I think over the years, a lot of people has warmed up to this movie. Still doesn't get, I don't think it get the props that it deserves. It's a really good movie. Now, again, like I said before, it's coming off the success of T2. Nothing, especially a Terminator movie is going to top or match T2. We're talking about Terminator 3, Rise of the Machines. This is the Terminator Anthology. This has got the first 4 movies. Terminator 3, in my opinion, was a really good movie. And it did a good job explaining Judgment Day. It did a good job at showing the end. It did a really good job. I think the movie was fantastic, actually. Again, coming off of T2, I see why people didn't care too much for it, but I like Terminator 3, Rise of the Machines. I thought they did a good job with that movie. So that's where I'm at with it. I've always liked that movie from when it first came out, and I never understood all the hate for it. I never did. Because you're not going to get Terminator 2 again. You're just not. Seriously. That movie is, what, over 20 years old, and if they was to do another Terminator movie today with the advancements in technology, you're still not going to get that. Get over it. You're not getting T2 again. Period. Next, we have 2001's Hannibal. I enjoyed every movie in the whole Hannibal Lecter series. Silence of the Lambs, Hannibal's Red Dragon. I loved all of those movies. Hannibal Rising, I loved that. So, for me, Anthony Hopkins did and Julianne Moore, they did a phenomenal job in this movie. Fantastic movie. I love it. Next up, we have an animated. I'm going to throw an animated piece in this one. We got let's see. This came out in 2010. We have Batman Under the Red Hood. This movie is probably, this is in the top 3 of Batman animated movies. Definitely in the top 3. I, for years, held this as number 1 in Batman animated movies, but I got so many Batman movies, I'm going to have to go through that. So what I'm going to do, actually, this is a good time. I'm going to do a ranking. I'm going to do a list of all the Batman animated movies, or all the movies with Batman in them, and just do a ranking. I'm not sure how long it's going to take for me to put that together, but I think this still sit in the top 3. This still might even be the number 1. This is an incredible Batman animated movie. This might be number 2, because I think Mask of the Phantasm is still number 1. But anyway, I'm rambling on. Batman Under the Red Hood. This is a banger and a great movie. Next up, we have 2004's Jim Caviezel, Passion of the Christ. What can I say? Listen, this movie, even if you're not a believer, this movie will tug at your heartstrings. But if you are a believer, there was people who, when this movie first came out, you had whole churches renting out theaters so they can have their whole congregation watch this movie. Yeah, older people who really are true believers having heart attacks. People died watching this movie, just like Saving Private Ryan. That was another one. You had older guys who fought in that war. People was watching that movie and it was bringing it all back. People was having medical episodes watching Saving Private Ryan. This movie too, there's people who was having medical episodes watching this movie. I'm telling you, this movie was off the chain. Like I said, even if you're not a believer, this movie was off the chain. This was deep. This was a deep piece. Mel Gibson got some backlash for this, but he also got a lot of praise for this, and it made him extremely wealthy. Extremely, extremely wealthy. Again, Passion of the Christ. Even if you're not a believer, this movie is crazy. But if you are, man, Jim Caviezel, and his career never really took off after this. He did a few things here and there, but his career never really took off. Next up, we got 2010's The Book of Eli. Man, this movie right here, again, if you're a believer, this movie is for you too. Even if you're not, but it's got a lot of religious themes with this. Basically, he was led by God. This man was totally blind. You didn't know that until the end of the movie. And what a great movie. Gary Oldman did a great job as the antagonist in search of the last Bible, which Denzel Washington had. But I don't want to give too much of this one away. I know you all saw this one, but this is a fantastic movie. And again, it's got a lot of religious Christianity-based themes to it. But again, if you're a believer, you'll like it even more. But if you're not, you're still going to find something to enjoy about that movie. Next up, we got one of my favorite horror movie franchises, one of my newer horror franchises. From 2010, we have Insidious. I like this movie. I like the whole idea of this movie. I liked the first 2 Insidious movies. 3 was okay. The Last Key, but I really enjoyed Insidious. I thought this was something very, very different. It dealt with astral projection, and I think that was the first time a horror movie actually dealt with astral projection the way this one did. Fantastic movie. Astral projection, for those of you who don't know, is basically an out-of-body experience. Let's see. Next up is Star Trek 09. I really liked this reboot. Again, people had issues with this movie. I'm not sure why. When they do a lot of these reboots or remakes, they're pulling from the original source material, but they updating it. You're not going to get the original. Now, I get it. Some remakes and some reboots are not good, such as RoboCop 2014. I thought that could have been great. I don't think it was a complete train wreck, but I think it had some missed opportunities for that one. Let's see. There's quite a few, like Nightmare on Elm Street, that was just bad. But some of them are not bad. Some of them are good. Some of them are great. This one was pretty good. I enjoyed Star Trek 09. I liked all 3 of these. I think Beyond was the weakest link. Some people think Into Darkness was the weakest, but I actually enjoyed Into Darkness. But again, Star Trek 09. Next up, we have, from 2009, Law Abiding Citizen, Gerard Butler, Jamie Foxx. Fantastic movie. I mean, this was a banger. I'm trying to tell you. I'm not sure. Let's see. So basically, Clyde was a brain for like the CIA. He was the guy who could get a kill done without leaving a trace. He could kill someone from probably on the other end of the world. He could get the kill done. He was like a brain. And his family was killed in the beginning of the movie. His wife and daughter was brutally killed in front of him. And all he wanted was justice, and he didn't get it, so he had to take matters into his own hand. Banging movie, Law Abiding Citizen. Next up, we got 2008. This is one of my wife's favorite movies. The Curious Case of Benjamin Button. I love this movie. And the reason why I like this movie so much was the theme of it. Who would ever think to do a movie where you age in reverse? This movie was, again, like I always say, sometimes you'll fall in love with the theme of a movie, the ideal of a movie, the way the movie is set up. But this is a movie where I enjoyed the theme of the movie, but also the acting and the story. Everything fell into place. This was a very unique, very good movie. Again, it's a little bit on the long side, so you want to commit a little bit of time to watching it. Next up is 08's Iron Man. This is the original Iron Man movie. I loved it. I think it was the best one out of all 3. Definitely better than 2. 3 I thought was okay. 3 was heavy on the action and a lot of really nice effects. I liked 3 for that. I didn't care too much for the story in 3, and I didn't care too much for the story or anything in 2. This is the best Iron Man movie in my opinion. I loved it. I enjoyed it. Next up, 2006, 300. Man, what can I say about this? I mean, This is Sparta! So many great lines in this movie. So much action. The way it was shot. It was just ahead of its time, the way this movie was done. I never saw a movie that looked like this before this or after this. Just a fantastic movie. A real gem. A real gem. Next, we have 2008's Hancock. Great movie. I like this movie, and I was hoping to get at least one more out of this Hancock series, but we never got any more. It was a good movie. Will Smith did a great job. Hancock basically, he was just like I think it was aliens from another world. Him and the other female that you found, I think it was Charlize Theron. You didn't find out about her powers to near the end of the movie, and it's hard to explain this one, but he was basically a drunk. And he didn't use his powers for good. He always screwed everything up. He wasn't a bad guy, but he wasn't a good guy. He was just a guy. He was drunk. He was a drunk. He was just like, just a regular guy who was just down on life. You know what I'm saying? And he got with, I think Jason Bateman was like an image rehabilitation specialist. He rehabilitated his image, and he made him into basically a hero. Fantastic movie. You'll like this one. Hancock. That one just came out of nowhere. Caught me by surprise when it first came out. Next up, we got another movie from 2007 that people can't stand, and I don't know why. 07's Rob Zombie's Halloween. One of my favorite movies. And the reason why, I already explained it before, but for those of you who didn't see my video about my Bring the Smoke episode 1, this movie did a great job of telling the Michael Myers story that none of the other Halloween movies told. None of the originals went into this detail about the origins of Michael Myers. And for that, this movie is a banger. Straight up. Next up, we have 07's I Am Legend. Another Will Smith movie. This movie right here was really, really good. And I think this is probably one of the better Will Smith movies, and this is probably one of the last bangers that he put out. This was good. I enjoyed it. I think this is probably like the last true banger that he put out. He put out a few things after this, but I think this was the last of the Mohicans. I didn't see his latest work, Emancipation. I heard mixed reviews on that one, but this was good. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the story. I didn't care too much for the end, but I did like the movie. Next up, we have 07, No Country for Old Men. Man, right here, this right here. Oh, man, the acting, the star power, the story. I mean, Anton was no joke. I mean, this movie right here, I couldn't take my eyes off the screen. Every time I watch this movie, I can watch this movie right now, and if I'm in the middle of something, I will literally stop unless it's something important. But if I'm just in the crib just doing something and this pop on like one of the streaming services, I'll stop, sit down, and watch. Even though I own it physically, I love No Country for Old Men. Fantastic movie. And it racked up plenty of awards and plenty of nominations when it first came out. All well-deserved. Tommy Lee Jones. Let's see. Tommy Lee Jones, Javier Bardem. I don't really know much about him. And, of course, Josh Brolin. That Brolin legacy, that Brolin line of great actors. Fantastic. Let's see. 07. Here's one that I'm going to feature in Underrated. And I should have saved this one and not put it in this video, but I think it's a great movie from the 2000s, from the early 2000s, between that 2000 2010 era. So I had to include it because it is a fantastic movie, and I want to give this movie some exposure, but don't be surprised if you see this in later videos. This is There Will Be Blood with Daniel Day-Lewis. Man, look. Daniel Day-Lewis is Hollywood gold. You hear me? I haven't seen anything with this guy in that I didn't like. Granted, there's not a ton of stuff that I have with him in it. I don't know how much, I didn't dive deep into his full filmography, but from the stuff that I've seen and the stuff that I have from him, I love all of it. There Will Be Blood. This was a masterpiece. Again, it's a little bit on the long side, so you need to commit some time to really watch it and enjoy it. Just commit some time, and you're going to love this movie. There Will Be Blood. Fantastic film. Let's see. These two movies here. Let's see. One is 2002. One is 2007. Let's deal with the first one from 2002. 28 Days Later. Fantastic zombie movie. Danny Boyle. Yeah, Danny Boyle, the director of Trainspotting. He did this one. Great movie. I loved it. One of the better zombie movies out there. And then we also have from 2007, 28 Weeks Later, that, you know, goes right back to it. Fantastic. I love both of these movies. Great, great movies. Next up, we have another Will Smith movie, The Pursuit of Happiness. Man, look. I featured this in 10 movies that make you cry. Definitely a movie that will make you cry. You will have to have a cup or a bucket next to you when you watch this movie. There's so many sad, so many emotionally driven scenes in this movie. The one scene that I can think of is the scene in the bathroom with him and son, he had his foot at the door so him and his son could get some sleep. Oh man, just man, The Pursuit of Happiness. That movie right there, boy. Woo. Next up, we have 2006's Casino Royale. In my opinion, this is the best Daniel Craig. This one and the last one are the best two Daniel Craig. But if I had to say which is the best Daniel Craig Bond movie, I'm going with Casino Royale. This movie is all that. What a great way for them to reboot the franchise with a new actor playing Bond. His first time out, to me, was the best one. They did everything right with this movie. I loved Casino Royale. This is my favorite Bond movie out of all Bond movies. Not saying it's the best, it's my favorite. Next up, we have from 2005 and 2008, respectively, we have The Dark Knight Begins, well, Batman Begins, and then we have The Dark Knight. Both of those movies were redefining moments for DC, but also for the whole comic book movie genre. These movies, Batman Begins and The Dark Knight is probably hailed as the best Batman movie ever and one of the best comic book movies ever, period. And that includes stuff from the MCU as well. Next up, we got, from 2005, we got Star Wars Episode 3. The Revenge, I think was that Revenge of the Sith, I think? No, that's Revenge of the Sith I forget the name of that one. Hold on, guys. I want to make sure I'm right here. I just put Episode 3, but I want to make sure that we get the right name here. It's been a while since I watched this. What the hell? Oh, I see. A New Hope, Attack of the Clones. No, not the Phantom Menace. Is that the Phantom Menace? Attack of the Clones? Revenge of the Sith. There we go. Revenge of the Sith. I was right. But anywho, this is Star Wars: The Complete Saga. We're talking about Revenge of the Sith. I loved it. Episode 3. And the reason why I liked Episode 3 the most probably out of all the Star Wars movies, I like that one because me personally, I love a good origin story. Like, for example, I'm sorry, guys, I'm rambling off a little bit, but we'll get back to this. I still want to see the John Wick. I want to see a movie about that impossible job. I mean, in John Wick 1, Viggo really ran down John Wick and how he was, the boogeyman and all that shit, and how you sent him to kill the boogeyman and the impossible job that he gave him and the bodies he buried that day laid the foundation for who they are today. I want to see that impossible job. I love origin stories. I don't like when they skip out on those. John Wick is up to 4 movies and we still have not seen that impossible job. This one, they wrapped up that Star Wars beautifully by showing us everything that we needed to know. I loved it. That's why I liked the Rob Zombie Halloween so much. It was a great origin story. It filled in the gaps. That's another reason why I like T3 so much. It filled in the gaps. It showed Judgment Day. It showed how it started. It showed how John survived. It was a banger. I love a good origin story. Next up, I'm sorry for rambling off. Next up, we got 04's Dawn of the Dead. Dawn of the Dead, to me, is the gold standard of zombie movies. This is it right here. This is top of the line, top of the strata. This is the king of the hill for our zombie movies to me. I think a lot of you feel that way about that movie too. Next up we have 2004's Saw, the first Saw movie. I loved it. What I loved about this movie so much was the boy was in the room with him the whole time. At the end when he got up, I said, yeah, this is a classic. This is a classic. The whole movie was good, but that one part where he got up at the end of that movie, he was in the room with them the whole time. Man, look. I said, yeah, this is an instant classic right here. And it spawned, as you can see, quite a few movies. So, yes, Saw. Very, very good movie that jump-started a decent franchise. I ain't going to say it's a great franchise, but a decent franchise. Next up, we have 04's Denzel Washington, Man on Fire. Man, this is a great movie. The kills in here are very good. one quote in particular that really had me look at this movie like, damn, this is a badass man right here. You guys, you remember the scene where he was in the apartment with the old people and he had the RPG and he was setting up for that car that was coming around the corner? And the people, you could see the subtitles, they was talking to him in a different language and they was talking to him about forgiveness. And he said, forgiveness is between him and God. I'm just here to arrange the meeting. Damn, that's a badass saying to say, look, I ain't in all that forgiveness. I'm just here to set up the meeting between him and God. He can talk to God and God can forgive him. I'm just here to make sure he goes see God. Woo! Man, that was a bad scene right there. Next up, we got 2004's Ray. Man, listen. Jamie Foxx did a hell of a job in this movie, and Jamie Foxx's career did take off a little bit because of this movie. Jamie Foxx is a star for sure. He's not a mega star, but he is a star. But his performance in this one, I still think this is his best performance to today. And I like Jamie Foxx. I think he's a good enough actor. But this right here, I'm surprised this didn't take him to superstardom. Because, man, he did a great job in this one. Next up, we have two movies here. We got another. So we got 03 and 04, Kill Bill and Kill Bill Volume 2. Man, listen, I love these movies. I have a hard time with her name. Uma Thurman did a great job in both of these movies. You had a decent cast. David Carradine, Vivica Fox popped in. Just a lot of different talent that was in and out of both of these movies. I enjoyed Kill Bill Volume 1 and Kill Bill Volume 2. Fantastic movies. Both of them, fantastic. Next up, we have, the follow-up to a movie that came out in 1999 that revolutionized movie effects for decades to come after. And those effects are still, in movies today. And we have The Matrix Reloaded from 2003. 2003, The Matrix Reloaded. I enjoyed The Matrix Reloaded. Some people didn't care too much for The Matrix Reloaded. I thought it was great. I think it had a lot of good action. The highway chase scene was incredible. The fight scene that Neo did with the Meryl Prengy in that hotel was banging. The whole movie was good. I enjoyed it. The only one I didn't care too much for was Revelations, and the new one I don't count that. But The Matrix 1 and 2. But we talking about Reloaded because this came out in the early 2000s. The original Matrix came out in the late 90s. Next up, this movie is very special to me because I have one son. I have 3 daughters and I have one son. And my son is my youngest. So when he was a little baby, this movie was very popular and he loved it. It was his favorite movie. And I watched it with him a million times. He would always want me to sit and watch it with him. Even when I had stuff to do, I would sit down with him for 5, 10, 15 minutes every time he watched it, because he loved this movie. And it's Finding Nemo. And this is a great father and son story. And I remember me and him walked into Walmart one time, right when this was coming out on home release. And he said, you know how Walmart used to back in the day had the big modular displays with the movies and different movies on different new releases on each side? Well, they had a modular display with just Disney movies on it. And this one was front and center. He said, he was real little at the time. I think he was like 2 years old, 2 or 3 years old. And he tugged my pants leg and he said, Dad, look, Melmo. Little kids can't really, their pronunciation ain't really there yet. And he said, look, Dad, Melmo. He called Nemo Melmo. And every time I see this movie, I still watch it to this day. And me and him watched it not too long ago. He's 17 years old now, getting ready to turn 18. So we watched it the other day. Well, not the other day, maybe about a week or two ago. And we just was laughing the whole time. And this is a very special movie for me. And it's a great father and son story. Finding Nemo. Okay, that was a little rant. Next up, we have 03's Underworld. Underworld is a really good movie, a great action movie. And I like the idea of it. Vampires versus werewolves or lichens. I never really thought of that until I saw this movie. But that was a great way to, instead of having vampires going against humans, why not have vampires go up against werewolves? And they did it, and it was banging. And it started a pretty decent franchise. Some movies are better than others. The whole franchise as a whole is pretty decent. It's a good franchise. It's not a great franchise as a whole. There's a few movies that are really, really good, this being probably the best one out of the whole franchise, but there's a couple that came after. I think it's 5 or 6 movies in that franchise, and I'd say about 3 of them are really good. This is the best one, though. Next up we have, and that was 03. Underworld came out in 03. Next up we have one of the best thrillers in my collection. And again, I should have saved this for underrated, but I probably still will put this on an underrated movie because it is underrated, but it is definitely a movie from, let's see, from 2003, Identity. Man, look, John Cusack, Ray Liotta, Amanda Peet. This was a banger right here. This was one of the better thrillers I've seen. And I can do a video on just thrillers, and this will definitely make the list. This was a great thriller. This was, man, look, you got to check this one out. You got to check this one out, seriously. Identity. I mean, man, I don't want to give away too much of that one. I don't know if you saw it or not, but trust me, you want to check that one out. Next, we got from 02, we got Taken, the very first one with Liam Neeson. There's 3 of them in total. The second one was okay. 3 I didn't care too much for. But this first one, man, this was really good. I got a special set of skills. Yeah, this is a good movie right here. Next up, we got 02, Blade 2. Blade 2 to me was just as good as Blade 1. I think Blade 1 was a little bit better. And what made Blade 1 a little bit better was Deacon Frost. A good bad guy can really turn the tide in a movie based on a good guy. To me, a good guy is only as good as his bad guy. So just like Batman, the Joker, if you got a really good bad guy, it really shines light on how good the good guy is. That makes sense? So Blade 2 was good. I did like the bad guy in this one, but I think Blade 1 was just a little bit better. But Blade 2 was definitely better than this train wreck right here, Trinity. Blade 2. Very important movie for the superhero genre. Both Blade 1 and 2 are very important. Next up, speaking of superhero, 02, Sam Raimi's SpiderMan, the first one, banging. I think 2 was the best one in this original trilogy. 1 was good. A lot of people hated on 3. I thought all 3 of them was good. 2 being the best, I'm going to rank them real quick. 2 is the best, 1 is second best, and 3 being third best. That's how I rank those. Next up, we got, speaking of Hannibal Lecter, Red Dragon. More from that Hannibal Lecter line of movies. Red Dragon was a banger. I loved Red Dragon. Creepy. This had a lot of horror elements to them. I think all of those movies got a little hint of horror, but this one had more than the other ones. I mean, this had a lot of horror to it. 2000s Jim Carrey movie. And you're going to be surprised which one it is. It is The Grinch. How can you not like this movie? The Grinch. I mean, a live action version of The Grinch with Jim Carrey. That energy, I mean, especially when this movie was done, he was still riding high off his fame. The energy that this man brought to the screen in this movie was crazy. I mean, I loved it. This live action version to me, and the animated version has been a staple in probably, if you're a person of a certain age, that animated one that came out every Christmas, that was a staple in your household. Y'all had to watch that. That was it. But this live action one, this is the new staple. Next up, we are moving up to 2001. We have probably one of the better movies from the 2000s to 2010s. This is definitely one of the best. And it's a movie that's overlooked. I'm not going to say it's overrated. I'm going to say this one is overlooked. People just don't talk about this one as much, but it's a banger. Based on a true story, Blow. Johnny Depp and Penelope Cruz did a hell of a job in this one right here. This movie was banging, based on the life of George Jung. Major weight mover. You got to check this movie out. Pee Wee Herman had a role in here. One of his lines was just, he was like, he took a hit of the Coke and the shit was so good that it numbed his face. He was like, I can't feel my fucking face. And then his homie looked at him like, buy it. And so the Coke was so good, they was tripping on it. So yeah, George Jung was that dude. Next up we have '01, definitely one of the best movies from that time, from that decade, Training Day. Definitely one of the best. Antoine Fuqua did a hell of a job putting this movie together. They did the right job by casting Denzel and Ethan Hawke. They both played off well on each other. Man, what a great movie. Training Day. I think he got the Grammy. He got the Grammy for Training Day. Now, me personally, I do love the fact that Denzel got his flowers for this movie, but the fact that he got passed up for Malcolm X, but got it for this, I never felt that. Again, I'm happy that he got the Grammy. He deserved, this was a Grammy award-winning performance. But the fact that he got the Grammy for this over Malcolm X, nah, that didn't sit right with a lot of people, though. Seriously, though. And I know, before anybody in the comment section, I know each movie was up against different movies. I get that, but you know what I mean. Just because we understand something don't mean we have to agree with it. You feel me? Next up, 2000's Gladiator. Man, this is one of the better movies in my collection. If I got to do a total collection ranking, this sits in the top 100. Not sure where, but it definitely sits in the top 100. Next up, last one from 2000, Castaway. This is an old beat-up DVD. I had this bad boy in the collection for a long time. It's time for an upgrade, but it is what it is. When I come across a Blu-ray, I'll get it. But what can I say? Tom Hanks on an island. He was a FedEx worker. The plane went down. He ended up on this island. He befriended a soccer ball. There you go, Wilson. And the movie was just, it was a perfect isolation movie. This man was by himself on an island, and he managed to entertain us for over 2 hours. They had to pause production of this movie for, I think, 6 months or even a year so he could slim down, because you notice in the second half of the movie, he looked like they said he was down about anywhere from 40 to 60 pounds he had dropped for that second half of the movie. And he looked fantastic in the second half of the movie. Very, very toned and well-defined, a lot thinner. But the movie was just fantastic. And then when he made it back to civilization, life had moved on. I think he was on that island for like 2 to 3 years. He was on that island. He survived on basically coconuts and crabs. And then he had like a tooth infection. He had to deal with that. Oh man, this was a great movie. And it was one of the better movies. I call these movies like movies where they're in isolation, or they're in like a single set, like where the movie is shot on just a single location. Like Friday, where they did pretty much the whole movie, like 95% of the movie on that stoop. You got The Hateful Eight, where they did like freaking 99% of that movie in that cabin. This reminds me of one of those type of movies. But again, Castaway, fantastic movie. Tom Hanks got a lot of great movies that you can just sit there and just run off. But this is one of the best, and I loved Castaway from 2000. Well, guys, that's 50 great movies from 2000 to 2010. Real quick, we're just going to recap this real quick so you can just see them all real quick. In no particular order. The Curious Case of Benjamin Button, Law-Abiding Citizen, Star Trek '09, Insidious, The Book of Eli, Passion of the Christ, Batman Under the Red Hood, Hannibal, T3, Rise of the Machines, Tenacious D and the Pick of Destiny, Transformers, Precious, The Exorcism of Emily Rose, Traffic, 13 Ghosts, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, Castaway, Gladiator, Training Day, The Grinch Who Stole Christmas, Red Dragon, Taken, Identity, Finding Nemo, Casino Royale. Royale. The Pursuit of Happiness. 28 weeks later. 28 days later. 28 days later comes first if you want to know, but There Will Be Blood. No Country for Old Men. I Am Legend. Rob Zombie's Halloween. Hancock. 300. Iron Man. Blow. SpiderMan, Sam Raimi's SpiderMan. Blade 2. Underworld. Matrix Reloaded. Kill Bill Volume 1 and 2. Ray. Man on Fire. Saw. Dawn of the Dead. Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. The Dark Knight Begins Batman Begins in the Dark Knight. Well, that's everything. That's 50 movies from the 2000 to 2010. Thanks for watching. If it was you getting a little vibration at the end here, apologize for that. My kids stole my tripod, took my tripod, so I had to jerry rig something. So I'm getting a little wobbling on the table here. Hopefully I have that fixed soon. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.